Huninakan, Natawa Ganitampagas, Katasquamson. Good evening, family and friends. How are you doing? Neesu, Wushuwunoag, Director General, Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America. Hoping this evening's finding you well. And just coming back, as I do from time to time, with some thoughts on different matters that I think are pertinent or beneficial. Sharing some perspective from the work we do with the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America, serving the capacity of Director General. And what we hope helps you on your personal journey to getting to where you're trying to be. And I want to have a discussion this evening, just share some thoughts about a couple of items. The first one being the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. All right, and I think it's important. I just share some thoughts. I mentioned it a couple times, but I figured I should just be a little bit more, I don't know, maybe in depth about it. This is also called the Snyder Act. There's two of them. There's a 1921 Snyder Act, but we're talking about the 24. And I found this little article. I'll put it in the comment section so you can read it yourself. It's titled Native American Citizenship, the 1924 Indian Citizenship Act. And I'm just going to read it verbatim. Just sharing this for educational purposes, so not saying I own it or anything like that. No ownership rights to it. But this is educational because this is public knowledge. And this is on the nps.gov website. So I put the link in there. You can check it out yourself. But it says 1924 Indian Citizenship Act. And I want you to pay very close attention to this language because after I read it, I'm going to explain to you what our position is on it and how we view it. Until the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924, Indians occupied an unusual status under federal law. Some had acquired citizenship by marrying white men. Others received citizenship through military service, by receipt of allotments, or through special treaties or special statutes. Many were still not citizens, and they were barred from the ordinary processes of naturalization open to foreigners. Congress took what some saw as the final step on June 2nd, 1924, and granted citizenship to all Native Americans born in the United States. The granting of citizenship was not a response to some universal petition by American Indian groups. Rather, it was a move by the federal government to absorb Indians into the mainstream of American life. No doubt, Indian participation in World War I accelerated the granting of citizenship to all Indians. But it seems more likely to have been the logical extension and culmination of the assimilation policy. After all, Native Americans had demonstrated their ability to assimilate into the general military society. They were no segregated Indian units as they were African Americans. Some members of the white society declared that the Indians had successfully passed the assimilation test during wartime, and thus they deserved the rewards of citizenship. Dr. Joseph K. Dixon, an active proponent of assimilating the vanishing race into white society, wrote, "The Indian, though a man without a country, the Indian who has suffered 1,000 wrongs considered the white man's burden from mountains, plains, and divides. The Indian, threw himself into the struggle to help throttle the unthinkable tyranny of the Hun. The Indian helped to free Belgium, helped to free all the small nations, helped to give victory to the Stars and Stripes. The Indian went to France to help avenge the ravages of autocracy. Now shall we not redeem ourselves by redeeming all the tribes?" And so the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 proclaimed, "Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America, in Congress assembled, that all non-citizen Indians born within the territorial limits of the United States be, and they are hereby declared to be citizens of the United States, provided that the granting of such citizenship shall not in any manner impair or otherwise affect the right of any Indian to tribal or other property." So let me break down a couple of issues where we have with this document. First and foremost, it says right in the beginning that the Indian at some point couldn't be a citizen. They were barred from it. But before that, it says that one of the ways that Indians were becoming citizens was through marriage. So keep in mind, when you're thinking about an Indian, according to these colonial terms, Aboriginal inhabitant of these lands that they now call America. Some of our people, a lot of our people, were willfully marrying into the white society. Up here we call it passing. Passing. If you could get away with being white, then you did it, right? Because easier life, less stress, better life for your kids. Think about it. If you could pass, you passed. And I'm aware of situations where individuals saw their cousins out at locations, you know, and it was found out that they were related and that they were dark-skinned Indian and that the light-skinned Indians were related to them and jobs were lost. Things of that nature. So a lot of that stuff was going on back then, but they were willfully. Not only that, they were doing it through military service, receipt of allotments, all of this stuff. So there were multiple ways that our people were being assimilated. It wasn't just thrown into schools and all of that. Some of us were willfully moving into that space if we could. Then I want to skip down because I already talked about the fact that at some point Indians couldn't get citizenship. It wasn't. So they were taking steps to give them citizenship. And when you look at the language that they're using around why they're taking steps, they're talking about how the Indian has nobly served them, right? And after all of his hard work and efforts, he deserves this opportunity to be a citizen, right? He deserves it. And so they enact that all non-citizen Indians born within the territorial limits of the United States be territorial limits, and they are hereby declared to be citizens of the United States, provided that the granting of such citizenship shall not in any manner impair or otherwise affect the right of any Indian to tribal or other property. So what they're doing here, after all of this proclamation, is making a commercial claim. Look at they put, as long as it doesn't affect tribal property or whatever, then they can be citizens. It's commercial. Everything that we're going through right now in terms of colonization is a result of commercial claims. That's what the legal system's all based about. It's all about money, right? It's all about money. And until we realize and accept that it's about commerce, we're going to continue to be angry. We're going to continue to be frustrated. We're going to continue to want to, you know, hate the white man and hate the Pan-African and hate the Moor and hate all of that, right? And not get anywhere because we're not understanding that this is a commercial system. So what they made was a commercial claim. And most of us have not rebutted that claim. All right, most of us have not rebutted that claim. Now, I say that because it ties into the 2020 census. So I did a video a few weeks ago, right? Did a video a few weeks ago about the 2020 census and talking about it was an opportunity to reclassify. Now, I want to make something clear because I've seen a bunch of different videos pop up, you know, and different people talking about it, and that's good. Conversation is good about it. But I want people to understand the 2020 census is not the solver of your problems. It's not. It's a way for you to reclassify yourself so you're down on their records as an American Indian. All right? But if you look at this act, American Indians are citizens of the United States. So what does that mean? Well, that means that as a citizen, you cannot claim treaty rights against the nation that you're a citizen of. You can't do that. You can't be a citizen of something and claim treaty rights against it. You're a part of that nation. That's like the nation claiming something against itself. So you can't do that. So when you reclassify, you then cannot run around and talk about, I can't be taxed. I can't this. I can't be locked up. You can. You can. You can. What happens is your status becomes federal. You're dealing on a federal level now. When you reclassify, you're on a federal level now. Because that's what Indians have to be dealt with. They delegated all of that to Congress. The states, when they did the Constitution, if you read it, Article 1, Section 3, Clause 2, I think. And the 14th Amendment as well. But the Indians not taxed. And, you know, they're saying that all of these things are delegated to Congress. The states don't handle that. but it's still under the citizenship of the United States. There's still a level of U.S. that you're held accountable to. It's just perhaps not your state or your municipal, unless there's like a 280 relationship, and then you get into even details there. So I want everyone to be clear. It's good that we're talking about the census. It's good that people are getting together, but that is not going to be the solver of all of your problems. It's not. You're still going to be, the terminology that I've been using, a colonized Indian, right? Because, okay, you're that, but you still have your English name. You still have your birth certificate. You still have your driver's license. You still have all of this. So you're still enumerated in their system. You're just probably in there as a black or an African American, or if you're older, maybe a colored or a Negro. But you're not down as an Indian. Once you reclassify, and the census is one way to do it, you're still enumerated. Understand that. You're still considered U.S. subject, citizen. You still are. So once you reclassify on the census, do not think that you can now run around doing what you want. There's more steps beyond that. And this is what I've been talking about. This is the fact that an Indian not taxed, there's certain stipulations that you have to have. And one, the main one, is that you have to be before they enacted all of this stuff, right? You have to be before the U.S. had the authority to do stuff. And the only way you can do that is to connect to before the U.S. was around. Because look at this. Unless you can have tribal property. What tribal property do you have? Your name, everything, your birth certificate, everything commercially about you is U.S. There's nothing from your tribe that designates you to be a member of your tribe. Your tribe probably doesn't even exist anywhere. Not on paper, not in the proper way. So until you can pre-colonial connect to something that predates the U.S., you cannot therefore claim to have superiority over it. American Indians, if you're going by that terminology, American Aborigine, anything that utilizes, the English, then you have to go by the English definitions. And you're going to have to meet the standards of them. You have to. You can't use your own definitions and not meet the standards. So reclassifying to American Indian is cool, but then from where? From what tribe? Once you can reclassify to the tribe, identify where the tribe is, your tribe then needs to have taken the proper steps to make sure that the federal government knows who they are, so that they know how to classify you. And if you haven't even gotten with your tribe, if your tribe is not pre-colonial, if your tribe's not operating correctly commercially, you have no standing to make an argument about anything to do with a treaty. You have to go off of the civil rights that you're given. So I want to repeat, the 2020 census is not going to be your ultimate solver of all your issues. All it's going to be is a way for you to put down on record who you are officially. You're still going to be subject to the U.S. though. And you need to understand what that means, what those policies are, how they affect you, what your state policies are on Indians. Do they have any? Is there a public law 280 relationship? How are you going to affect that? Are you being classified or misclassified as a sovereign citizen or a Moor? Because that's what they're doing a lot of times too. You might be all the way right, but then they're trying to classify you as this sovereign citizen or this Moor. Or the new one is the black identity extremist. So are you making sure to not get classified like that? And that's why we say you can't just hop up and stop making claims. Because if you slip up in even one place, it's going to be considered an invalid claim. And if you're making invalid claims, you open yourself up to actions against you. If you're claiming to be, like I said last time, a Narragansett, but you're dressed like a Cherokee, what sense, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense. You clearly can't substantiate your claim. You don't know anything about yourself. You don't even know your bloodlines. And the bloodlines, in our opinion, are the most key, because the bloodlines are going to tie you back to who you are in certain lands, in specific lands. That was my fourth great-great-grandfather. I can tie back to him by bloodline. Therefore, because he was chief, I can claim that runs through my veins. You hear? And who were his? So this is, the bloodlines are so key. So please, 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 family, do not think that rushing to get yourself reclassified on the 2020 US Census is going to save you from all of your drama and all of your problems. You need to know who you are. And I would not suggest going around just making a claim on a commercial document, because that's what the US Census is, based off of what you think, without knowing for certain. They know who you are. They have your records. You don't know who you are. And if you start going to try to make a claim, they're going to tell you, nah, that doesn't. Or they're going to let you make the claim and rack up all of the charges against you and then come get you. So you better make sure you know what you're talking about and can substantiate what you're saying, and that you're moving in the right capacity. You have to. You have to. The U.S. Census is one way to reclassify, but it is not going to stop the system. You saw what happened out at Standing Rock, sprayed with hoses and all that. How many of those police officers or private military firms are being held accountable for that? And I think we shared an article a few weeks back that talked about the number of individuals who were facing charges from out there, federal charges. You know, federal charges, because it's a federal matter. It's a federal matter. So understand, before you just go rushing to do something, what it means. And understand that the 2020 census is impacted by the Snyder Act. You're seen as a citizen. And if you're going to try to argue that you're not, then you need to be in your proper capacity. You have to. You have to. You simply have to. And that, having said that, is going to bring me to the last subject matter I want to discuss tonight, because I think this is one of the biggest issues, and this is why our people are getting jammed up. And I'm going to call them Moorish Aborigines. And these are individuals who give themselves their own titles, like chief, spiritual leaders, priestesses, and all of this craziness that is not done traditionally. Give themselves names, speak the language like, yo, we're gonna form the copper-colored nation, and we gotta stick together, and we was like this, and the culture, we're gonna revitalize the culture, and we're gonna get the language, because there's no specificity. There's no specificity in the language that they're speaking. They're giving you history, they're giving you facts, and all that's well and good. But this is why culture is so important, right? This is why culture is so important. Because they say the culture and the language, they're going to revitalize these things. And let me show you something that's very important. Very important. So, a couple weeks ago, y'all might remember that I was doing the census video. And I got really excited because I saw a hawk, right? Well, there was a hawk. It had deceased on the side of the road. So I took it. And I did my, ceremonies with it. And, everything we were supposed to do traditionally. I buried the body over at the pond on the sacred lands, where my people's from. I buried it over there. And what I have here is, taken in a good way, a hawk wing. It was a red-tailed hawk. Very nice sized bird, as you can see. I'm still, new to the thing, so the wing could probably be a little bit straighter out. But, I thought it was nice. Decent job. I did a decent job. And in most cultures that I've come across here, in these lands and in these parts, at least North America, even in the Mexico lands and all that, the hawk is seen as a good thing. It's seen as a good thing, So, and follow me. Just stay with me for a second. Now, a couple weeks after that, and I didn't talk about this, but found another something on the side of the road. And I'm going to show this right now, right? Because this is the importance of specificity. Of knowing who you are, right? Knowing where you come from, knowing what your practice is, your culture is, being able to identify yourself specifically, not being a part of some grand mass of copper-colored Aborigines who are gonna come together and we're gonna, I heard get dual citizenship in Mexico. So be a citizen twice, and that's gonna solve the problem. Being a citizen twice. This I have here, and I did the same thing, same ceremonies and all that, is an owl wing. Now, here's the problem, right? Here's the issue. For many tribes, the owl is seen as a bad omen. It's seen as a negative thing. They'll call it bad medicine, clan mother from the Ramapo Lenape Nation that I am very friendly with. She's a mentor of mine, Miss Kathy Spirit Dancer from the Ramapo Lenape. She told me that she was at one powwow and someone was picking off plumes of owl feathers that they have, and some of the family from out western saw it and left the powwow because they were so, no. I've seen people not, stop a circle because what are you doing, So for a lot of people, this is bad medicine, but if you know about the specific Nahigansic culture, for us, this was good medicine. We were night hunters. And in a lot of ways, the owl, in certain circles, is known as the night hawk because it's doing everything that the hawk's doing during the day, right? But at night. So for us, this is good medicine. We would hunt, run through the trees, drop down on our enemies, attack them in the darkness, and then run back up in the trees and gone. Like it never happened. We were known as fierce warriors. So for this was good medicine. So as a Nahigansit, I can deal with this because of the specificity of my culture and who my people are. For other people, they can't, but I can. And the specificity of understanding how your culture is, right? That's what's going to stop you from getting caught up by a lot of these Moorish Aborigines who are going to try to sell you, after all of the history and all that, to be a sovereign or to form a new nation, right? To form a new nation, a new one, which means that it's coming after the U.S., after they made you Indian citizens, before you have operated in the way a nation does. You're going to be a new nation. No, you're going to get BIE'd. You're going to make yourself, you're going to expatriate yourself, because that word I've seen out there as well. You're going to expatriate yourself. And expatriate means you pull yourself out of that nation. So you're going to pull yourself out of the U.S., but what nation are you going to be in? Are you going to be in one that lawfully has a superior jurisdiction here? Or are you going to be in a new one that came after the U.S.? And if you're going to be in a new nation that came after the U.S., or in a nation that you can't substantiate was actually a nation at all, if you're going to do that, then you're going to be in an inferior status to the U.S., or at least in a adversarial status with the U.S. And what happens when your tribe is in an adversarial status with the U.S.? Because you're not pre-colonial, you came after, and you're trying to tell them that they can't do what they want on this land. And you came after them. You're using English. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't substantiate who you are. You all just got together and decided to be this. How should the U.S. look at a new nation that's popping up to do that? As opposed to a nation that was here, that they know they took land from, they know they subjugated, they know they misclassified, they know they've signed treaties and dealings and all that said they wouldn't do that, and they know you're right. That's the difference. That's the difference. Them knowing you're right, or them thinking that you're an enemy in their own lands. Because you're claiming these lands, they're claiming these lands, and who got more guns and more soldiers? Trained. So the specificity, right? Because I'm not going to bring that medicine out to a circle where it's not wanted. I'm not going to do that. That's not my way. That's not my people's way. But there's most certainly not going to come to my circle and tell me what I can and can't do, if it's the way my people do it. So the specificity. And when you can get to the specificity beyond, well, like we always say, the 85% truth, the 85% truth. Once you start getting to the 86, 90s, 95s, that's when you start to see that these people really don't know what they're talking about. And these people really don't have the solution. And these people are probably trying to sell you on something, selling nationality packets. I ask again, to what nation? What nation are you buying a packet to? What nation are you buying a packet to? Which nation? Is it the one with the superior jurisdiction? Or is it the one that is in an adversarial relationship and is going to be considered an enemy of the state and a BIE? Which is it? Which is it? You tell me. Because I know Meshipog is the former rather than the later. I was just up at Nunaconkinut today. All praises to Creator above. I was just up at Nunaconkinut today visiting those lands. And beautiful space, absolutely beautiful. I was at Saramachet a few weeks ago. You know, beautiful space, beautiful space. And we'll be at Meshipog for the naming ceremony in a couple weeks. And that, it needs some work, but the connection we have there, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I can say with certainty, Meshipog, and Pokanoket can say with certainty, you know, Pokanoket, and Sand Hill can say with certainty, Sand Hill, and, you know, Kiskiak, and Baramaya Guania, and Uskipog. These are all there beforehand, bloodline substantiated. We're in the former because we've taken the time to get to know who we are so that it's unquestionable, and then taking the steps to move accordingly. In a position to say the former. If you follow a lot of this Moorish Aboriginal stuff, you're going to be in the latter. You're going to be a new nation on U.S. soil as they see fit, and as the law is going to agree, claiming that because your grandfather was this, you ain't got to follow U.S. law. And that's not what the Snyder Act says. So unless you have that person that's different than the U.S. one, which is probably the only way you're on record, and census, once again, is their records. They're not your records, they're their records. So you're still in their records. You're just reclassifying what you are in their records, but you're not anywhere else but in their records down on paper. You're still citizens. Hear me. We say check out the 2020 census because at the very least, you should be down in their system as what their proper classification is for you. At the very least, you should be that. But do not think that's going to save you from anything. I repeat, you have to be pre-colonial if you want to be able to step out of this system. And the reason why is because certain of us out there aren't going to be able to be pre-colonial. That's not what your heritage is. And I repeat, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no reason why you still can't be a part of doing the right thing. But the truth has to be the truth. So please, do not go rushing to the 2020 census, putting down things about yourself that you cannot substantiate. Don't do that. That's a federal record. That's a commercial document. And you're making a claim. Know who you are. Instead of rushing around, take the time to find out who you are. Go and talk to your elders. Go and talk to the leaders of your community if you can trust them enough to have the conversation. Talk to the ones who said they were Indians, who said they got some Indian in their blood. Follow that trail and find out if that's what you really are. Then make that claim. Specificity. Anyone who's given themselves a title, made themselves a chief that hasn't been approved by their tribe of bloodline people or their community, you know, of bloodline people. Not just a group of people who's just getting together. What's the difference between that, the Black Panthers, any other movement that's come before besides the fact that you're calling yourself an Aborigine now? What's different? We don't see anything different. Make sure you know what you're claiming. And the way to do that is to find out who you are and tie back to where you were at before this craziness began. Katapatush wutia chusuta. Kapishkanash. Thank you for listening to me, family. And as always, I hope to see you all soon. I hope.